Welcome to episode 45 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of June 1st, 2023. I'm your host, Logan Plant, and joining me this week, it's Justin Korais. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Logan.
And only Justin, another two-man show. We should get some guests in here or something for the summer.
I like that idea.
While Chris is away. But we've got a great show because we're going to, of course, talk about more Zelda. Moving it to the end of the show this week instead of the beginning if you're tired of hearing about it. I don't know how you could be at this point, but just in case. We're going to talk about the new Splatoon season that just dropped. We're going to kind of speculate a little bit on if we think we're going to hear from Nintendo this month. It is June. We just had a PlayStation showcase. Xbox's is coming up in about a week and a half, so what about Nintendo? But we got to start here with some breaking news. We actually got a little bit lucky this week. We had to record like 2 hours later than we normally do, and in those 2 hours, Nintendo made two announcements. One of them is just some new Joy-Con colors, which we'll hit on after the big one, which is a new first-party Nintendo-developed and published game, Everybody 1-2 Switch, a sequel to the launch title 1-2 Switch, is coming out this month on June 30th. It is $29.99, and you can already pre-order it digitally or physically for that same price point, for $30 on Nintendo's official website. And then we got to set a little more context here for this one, Justin, before we get into it. Almost exactly a year ago, Imran Khan over at Fanbyte published a story about the wild story behind Nintendo's unannounced 1-2 Switch sequel. And basically this said that it's hiding behind closed doors while Nintendo figures out what to do with it. They say that play testing was going extremely poorly for this game and audiences were not receiving it as intended. And here it is. This is that game. That is the title said from that report. So that report is in fact confirmed by this information. Justin, what do you think of this? It's announced in a very unceremonious tweet that comes down. Not even an exclamation point. Like, Nintendo America's marketing is usually very excited, and this just says, Everybody 1-2 Switch is coming to Nintendo Switch on June 30. Pre-order now. That's it.
Whether you wanted it or not, Everybody 1-2 Switch is coming. Yeah, I mean, not that he needs vindication, but I think this clearly, fully corroborates that everything that he reported was accurate, which, Absolutely. I mean, Imran's a pro, so of course it is.
Yes.
I think that we were talking a little bit about this before the show. A follow-up to 1-2 Switch is an interesting idea. I think 1-2 Switch made sense at launch as a proof of concept, like tech demo kind of thing. It did a couple of neat things. Everybody was into the like shake the glass and count how many ice cubes or something inside using the HD Rumble. Got kind of middling reviews. It's got a Metacritic of 58, so just below okay on like the IGN scale. I recall people being like, okay, cool, I get what it's doing, and then like moving on with their lives to more interesting titles like Breath of the Wild. So I guess my big question is like, I don't understand why this title is happening. I don't know that people were clamoring for it. As a budget title, I guess I can see, with 100 and some million Switches out, if you have a 1% attach rate, that's still over 1 million copies that's going out. So if they've built it, I could see them trying to recoup some costs. But I think given the time of year, given the fact that it's like weeks after Zelda just came out, and the way that they announced it, I think that also kind of corroborates Imran's report that it frankly may not be that good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm shocked it's getting a physical release. Okay. I feel like it makes it harder to just sweep something under the rug when it's going to be sitting on store shelves.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's been a hot topic this week about games that other games that aren't getting physical releases, or like the economics of making physical versions of games. And then they're like, yeah, whatever, here's a game nobody wants probably, but we're going to take up store shelves and we're going to print plastic and we're going to put bad tasting cartridges out.
Yeah, I think that you can count on one hand, maybe two hands, the number of first-party Switch titles that nicely done that have come in at under $60. I think that there's only a few. I can think of like WarioWare was $50, and that was a good price, I think, for that game. Nintendo Switch Sports came in cheaper. Some of the ports, like Miitopia, the 3DS game that came to Switch, came in at $50. That Game Builder Garage game that they put out, which was really cool experiment, came in at $30. Right. But I feel like you can almost read into their confidence on a game based on the price tag a little bit. $29.99 is the lowest they've ever gone for a retail game, and I think they've only done it once before.
Yeah, it is. It's really bizarre, and I think it reflects the fact that honestly, development costs probably was fairly minimal for them because they already did 1-2 switch. And I think that, like, it's summer. They don't really have anything else. I think it's like imminent as far as like a new game coming out now that Zelda is out. Obviously, there's questions about what they're. Yeah, I mean, there's questions about like what they're going to announce when for the fall, but yeah. Let me ask you this: what was your experience like with 1-2 Switch? Like, did you get a chance to play it or try it out?
I did at E3 2017. So when the Switch was new and everybody only had like Mario Kart Breath of the Wild, and some people had 1-2 Switch. Yeah. I played it with some people on staff at the site I was with at the time, and it was not very fun. It just did not hold us over really at all. We switched to Mario Kart pretty much instantly. Yeah. And
respectable.
Yeah, I think when you look at the narrative of 1-2 Switch, that game was like, why wasn't this a pack-in? It came in at $50. Its sequel's coming in at $20 less, probably the price the original should have shipped at. So yeah, I think that the first one was a dud, and from that report we got last year, another part I want to call out here is that the Nintendo site page for this game says very little about it. There's one screenshot, and then here's your description. Want a party? Break out the Nintendo Switch system and laugh it up at your next game night. Mix up your next get-together with everybody 1-2 Switch. Grab some Joy-Con controllers or smart devices. So that's like Jackbox.
That was interesting.
There. Yeah. Yep. For team-based games that are easy to set up and feature everything from balloons to aliens and more. People at your next party can get moving and show off their teamwork in this multiplayer mashup. A mix of game and modes to keep you on your toes. That's it. And then it just talks about like split into teams, use controllers or smartphones. This is the littlest we know about a Nintendo game ever. That's like 4 weeks away.
That's weeks away. Yeah. And like that was the most boilerplate. Like, what's just the least like we can say and just put out like some copy for about a game. Yeah. It would be amazing if this came out and was actually like really cool. That would be a very cool out of left field surprise. I'm not extremely hopeful about this, but I'll check it out.
You will? You'll check it out?
I'll bite that bullet. I'll jump on this grenade for the show.
I think I will too. I think that we can. Right. I think that we both should. Yes. Yeah, I know. We're part of the problem.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, exactly. We just enable them to put out whatever they want. We're just gonna buy it anyway.
Yeah. So, how about you? Did you play 1-2 Switch?
Very sparingly, like very, very like minutes tops. And it didn't hold my attention at all. Well, especially like it was right at lunch. And like I had Breath of the Wild, so like could not be bothered. And I can't remember if it wasn't at the exact same time. Like Snipperclips was really early too and was cheaper and better. So like
those are both launch games, yeah.
Yeah, what reason could you possibly have for 1-2 Switch, honestly?
Yeah. Especially when it wasn't a pack-in and it came
unless you want a quick draw.
50. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And then like you take a look at the Switch eShop and it's not first party, but they have like 10 Jackbox party packs on there, which is a game Nintendo would never make because it's not super family friendly most of the time.
It's a lot edgier. Yeah.
But I feel like this is almost their answer to that, especially with the smart device thing. And it's just like, I think you've got that niche covered. We talk about Nintendo all the time putting their own spin on genres, right? We had a big discussion about that a few weeks ago. And this is a genre that I don't think just based on Nintendo's style, they're going to do one up like Jackbox on. I just think that's covered.
Yeah. And we know so little about it. If you do see any reports online about it, people like with their write-ups, the write-ups all say the same thing because there's no information out about it. So it's largely just like, here's what the 3-sentence press release said.
Yeah. Very bizarre, but that's out on June 30th. So that's how they're following up probably the best game of all time is that's their next release.
I don't know that it's going to push Zelda for Game of the Year.
Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe not. And then on the same day, in case you need some more Joy-Con for your friends for when you're playing Everybody 1-2 Switch. Also, just a bad title.
It's terrible.
Title, by the way. Yeah. But there's 4 new Joy-Con coming out on the same day in pastel colors. These are pretty reminiscent of the Animal Crossing ones. They came out with that New Horizons Special Edition Switch, but there's like a pastel, like a purple, a green, a pink, and a yellow. I'm good on Joy-Con. I just got the Zelda ones, so I'm pretty good on Joy-Con. And what about you? How many Joy-Con are you up to in your household?
Oh man, so I would say I have probably 4 pairs,
Okay.
but not really in any interesting colors. Uh, they just break.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and so like I'm not gonna be picking these up. I do everything I possibly can to not use Joy-Con. Honestly, part of the reason why I justified getting myself my OLED was that, like, you know what, I need to buy $70 Joy-Con anyway. That's a good chunk of the
Yeah.
cost of a unit. Um,
Yeah.
and so, and like the stick drift issues in my experience never really went away. They did fix the Bluetooth connectivity issue as best I can tell, but
Mhm.
I hate using the Joy-Con. I think they're too small for my hands. I think that they're too fragile, and so I always use the Pro Controller. Like, even if unless I'm specifically in handheld mode,
Yeah.
I'm always using the Pro Controller. Even if I'm using it like in tablet form, I will use the kickstand and pull out my Pro Controller, because you go from what I think is a like bottom tier control interface to one of the better controllers ever made in
Yeah.
the Pro Controller.
Except that D-pad.
Uh,
The D-pad's bad.
yeah, yeah. Which is funny because like Nintendo like perfected the D-pad too, but that's neither here nor there. The colors are cool though.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a like cultural like difference for the seasonality of colors, like because like pastels are much more associated with the spring here in the West. Like very cool, like kind of Easter kind of like color palette on them. But I think they look great. So if you are a collector, enjoy them, but not for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I think 5 pairs of Joy-Con. And I actually mine have never broken. I just keep buying more for some reason. Yeah, I don't know, because I like the colors. I bought the Zelda ones, and I really love those. The Tears of the Kingdom ones, not the Skyward Sword ones. And I actually like playing with the Joy-Con. I like it.
Yeah.
I play with
tiny
Split.
hands.
I play with Split, and I just you just lounge out. You don't have to hold your hands close together. It's nice.
The the little accessory dock like that they come through to like combine them, like the grip is my preferred way to use them when I have to, but like I don't like the size of the placement of the triggers. I don't like the way that they feel. But I will say, because those darn thumbsticks keep breaking, I've gotten pretty good at repairing them. I've got a pretty good track record of replacing the rocker end of the thumbsticks.
Yeah, if they sell you so many Joy-Con, I really wonder, like, when we get to the next platform, are they going to have a Joy-Con 2.0?
Is there any incentive for them to make them better? Because they sell these things like crazy.
Yeah. Are old Joy-Con going to work on new hardware? I'd say probably, but that's what they did with the Wii remotes, thinking everybody will love this, and then they didn't with the Wii U.
Yeah.
But yeah, new Joy-Con colors that are coming out the same day as everybody 1-2 Switch. That's
perfect.
That's June
30. We'll get each.
Yeah, we'll each grab a pair. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not getting the Joy-Con. No, I'm good. I don't need any more. Okay, let's get into our main, what was going to be our lead topic until everybody 1-2 Switch broke, which is that it's June, and June traditionally means Nintendo talks to us in some big way. E3's not happening. Summer Game Fest is happening. PlayStation and Xbox are both on Jeff Keighley's big banner where they have logos of all the partners. Nintendo is not there. So they've been on and off supporters of Keighley's events over the years. They brought Sephiroth joining Smash Brothers to a Game Awards once. Them and Square Enix brought Bravely Default 2 to the Game Awards, but that was kind of the last one, and that was 2019. I don't really think we've seen them there since. So I don't expect them to show up there at all. And then last year we didn't get a big June showcase. I kind of have what they've done since 2019 here. 2019 was the last regular pre-pandemic E3. They were there, they had a show, they had a booth. But then since then, it's been different. 2020, they had a Nintendo Direct Mini partner showcase. That didn't happen until July, and those were very bad, traditionally. They had one that announced Monster Hunter Rise, but otherwise there was nothing substantial out of those at all. 2021 was the last big E3 style Direct we had. Metroid Dread, WarioWare, Mario Party Superstars, like, they set the calendar for the next year and teased some of the sequel to Breath of the Wild, which we all have now played dozens of hours of. And then last year, they had a Xenoblade 3 Direct on June 22nd, which is like a week to 2 weeks later than we usually hear from them in June. And then on June 28th, they had another partner showcase, which, again, did not show very much off. And then it wasn't until September that they had kind of a big blowout again for us with a bunch of new stuff. So you look on what's on the books for 2023, my show notes here are outdated. It was just Pikmin 4 on July 21st prior to today. Now it's Everybody 1-2 Switch on June 30th and Pikmin 4 on July 21. So we have the next 2 months covered. But after that, it's a blank slate. We know Metroid Prime 4 is in development, and that's it. That is all that we know about. So Justin, are we going to hear from Nintendo this month? And if we do, what shape's it going to take?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on my head several times, even while you were just listing everything now.
Yeah.
Because before the Everybody's 1-2 Switch news came out, I would have said, yeah, my gut tells me that they will. Because it is traditionally a time of year where they like to make those announcements. It fits really well with the timing of kind of your standard development cycle in terms of like where they should be build-wise for a fall release. Fall is barren. They just got their biggest title maybe ever out the door. And it's had a few weeks like in the sun. And so starting to pivot towards talking about what's next makes some business sense. But then, like, why wouldn't you include Everybody's 1-2 Switch in a showcase like that? Why wouldn't you include new Joy-Con in an announcement like that? And so then I was prepared to say, well, then it's not going to happen because they would have saved it. Maybe Everybody's 1-2 Switch does suck, and they don't want to include that in a showcase. So I keep going back and forth. I am extremely indecisive. I'm gonna go with no.
No. Okay. We're not gonna hear it at all.
Not in June.
Okay.
What about you, Logan?
It's tough. I'm similar to you. I'm ping-ponging back and forth. I thought about it a lot today, but then this news does change things. And then there was also that report, it was from IGN, I think Kat Bailey wrote this, saying Nintendo doesn't have much to show this summer. Like, they have a light 2023. I do believe that. I do believe the Switch is winding down and they don't have a ton in the pipeline, but there's no way they don't have a new game in November. There's just no way that they don't. They're going to have a big fall game. So the question is, when do we hear about that? Not till September? And something drops 2 months later? Do they drop something on Twitter? Like, Paper Mario the Origami King was just announced on Twitter. Just very, like this was today, just very randomly, a Twitter drop. So this could all change once I have a week to kind of sit with this Everybody 1-2 Switch news. But I'll say we hear from them this month. I think that we're going to get some sort of Nintendo Direct. I don't think it will be to the level of what we're used to seeing in June, but I think we're going to hear something from them. I think that they've got to have something in the pipeline for September, October, November, because traditionally a new Nintendo published game comes out every month. Like, for basically the last 2 years, like every month there is something new. Maybe we're seeing a drought now because like they held Fire Emblem Engage back for a long time for unknown reasons. Advance Wars was ready to go and then didn't come out. So maybe you can like pull those 2 months off the calendar for this year. So maybe this is like the decline happening now. So I don't know, but I just think there's a lot they need to talk about. They need to talk about the next wave of Mario Kart DLC. They need to talk about DLC for Zelda. I think there's going to be a DLC pass for that, like we saw for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, there has to be.
I just think there's stuff to talk about like that.
I do. Together. So there is now some more precedence for them to do these announcements really close to launch, like they did with Metroid Prime Remastered. Yes. And so I could see some incentive even with fall releases for them to wait until later. They do have the big showcase in Seattle that they're doing. Now, they've made it indicate that this is more like a fan fest kind of thing. Like, it's more about, like, you know, like Mario Kart tournaments and things like that. But, you know, if they have anything new or interesting to show, that wouldn't be a bad place to do it. And, you know, historically, at PAX West in particular, because it's in Seattle and that's roughly where they're based, like, they have had, like, pretty sizable displays there, like, in the past, like, diorama tables for, like, Link's Awakening and things like that. And so there's been some like integration there. At the same time, if the well is running dry on the Nintendo Switch, makes me, you know, wonder if it's because that's not their primary focus right now.
Yeah, if their strategy right now is like Zelda is moving units kind of like crazy. Like, Switches are selling right now. Like, a ton of people are buying them. So maybe the strategy for the summer is just lay low and let Zelda speak for itself and let all of us, which we are doing, speak for Zelda and these people buy Switches. I was hanging out with a friend the other night who we were watching the Mariners together. He's not a big video game guy, but he's like, I think I'm going to buy a Switch because I've been seeing all this Zelda stuff. And I was like, yeah, do it. Like, you should.
My mother-in-law is about to buy a Switch.
That's everybody. Like, they're getting everybody in here at the tail end of the life cycle. And it's like, maybe that is the strategy.
Just everybody's 1-2 Switch.
Everybody 1-2 Switch. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll tell you this. Here's where I'll stake my claim here. If the Mario Kart tracks are a Twitter drop, there's not going to be a Nintendo Direct.
I think that's wise.
Yeah. So until we see those, I think there's going to be one. Nintendo of Canada recently tweeted, more tracks are coming soon, by the way, ... And I'm like, okay, it's June now. Like, we've been hitting around every quarter. We get about some new tracks. So I think until you hear about those, I'm expecting a Direct.
Maybe they're almost done with that Metroid Prime 4 logo.
Yeah. When are we going to hear about that?
Right.
But yeah, and then there's the Pokemon DLC. We don't always hear about that stuff in Directs, but that's the big Pokemon thing this fall. We know nothing about Pikmin 4. So maybe they'll do the Xenoblade strategy and do a Pikmin 4 Direct. But yeah, I think we'll hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could recall off the top of my head the amount of time between Breath of the Wild and when we first started hearing about the DLC for that. I don't recall what that time frame was.
They announced that DLC before the game came out. Because you could pre-order the expansion pass, and then you got the Switch t-shirt.
That's a very Nintendo thing, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still have to believe there has to be like DLC for that. Like, even if it's small little thing for $10.
Yeah.
With the number of units that it is continuing to sell, that's an incredible sum of money that Nintendo isn't typically inclined to walk away from, and that players would appreciate.
Yeah, I think they'll get DLC also, but then I look like another mega hit like Mario Odyssey that just never got it. That just never got DLC, and it's like, you never know. You never actually know. I also think we're going to get new amiibo for Tears of the Kingdom. I still think that's on the way. I think they only released one. I think like you're going to see a Champion 4-pack of...
People demand that sexy Ganondorf.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that. But
right.
Like the Sidon, Tulin, Riju, and the Secret Goron champion, who everybody now knows who it is. I think you'll see an amiibo 4-pack for them too.
Man, the version of that Goron I would like, it would be amazing.
That was so disappointing. That's my biggest disappointment of the game so far.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. That wasn't the best section story-wise.
Yeah. But I would like to hear from Nintendo again because I can't recall the last time. I think it was the pandemic where we didn't know what the next release was from them. So if July 21 comes and goes and Pikmin is in our hands and we don't know what's next, that will break a long streak of us knowing the next date on the calendar. So that'll be weird. I think that they've been very good about that this gen, like pandemic excluded. They've been very good about that, and I'd be surprised if they didn't stick to that. Yeah. I don't know what it is, though.
Either.
Do you know if they're publishing that, like, Mickey platformer that's coming out? Do you know what one I'm talking about?
I didn't even know there was a new Mickey platformer coming out. The last Mickey platformers I can recall were the Epic Mickeys.
It's like the Isle of... Disney Illusion Island. I gotta see if they're publishing this because there's this like site that shows like upcoming releases for Nintendo Switch, and this was on there along with Pikmin and nothing else.
Publisher is Disney Interactive Studios.
Okay, so they are not. I don't know why that was on their calendar, but it was.
It's coming to Switch.
Yeah, it looks like a really great like Rayman Legends type of game. Oh yeah, Chris was on the show when we talked about it. I don't think you were on that episode.
Using the modern Disney art style that they have in the current cartoons and things like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
So something like that makes sense. There's a pretty good history of Disney games on Nintendo platforms.
All right, let's move on and talk about Splatoon 3 because, that's another thing actually we have to hear about is the Splatoon DLC. That's another thing we have to hear about. So, yeah, there's enough there. But anyway, Splatoon 3 Sizzle Season is here, and that is their summer season. They've been dropping them every 3 months or so. And this is version 4.0, and it's coming with a bunch of new stuff like every season does. A new catalog to level up, a brand new stage called Barnacle and Dime, a returning stage from Splatoon 2 called Humpback Pump Track, challenge mode, which is replacing ranked mode from Splatoon 2, and this is pretty cool. It's limited time windows, but the battles you have to play them by certain rules, like oh, your sub weapons don't count in this one, or you all have to use the same type of main weapon. Like there's very specific challenges you have to abide by to participate in these. That's a cool new thing that hasn't been in the series before. We're getting 2 new weapons called the S-Blast 92 and the Pain Brush. 9 new sets of existing weapons. A new salmon run stage called Jammin' Salmon Junction. Say that 5 times fast. That's kind of
not doing it.
Then 11 new cards for the card game Table Turf Battle and 3 new songs for multiplayer. I'm beating the same drum here, but I've just been so impressed with the content rollout for this game. It's been immaculate, and we're actually jumping into the season together tonight, which should be a lot of fun.
We are looking forward to it. We'll have some good stories for next week.
Yes.
And it comes with a suite of like multiplayer like tweaks and adjustments and things like that, and balancing and things like that. Honestly, it is for a company that historically is not at its best in the online arena. This is like effectively a perfectly executed live service game at this point. Regular updates with scheduled content in between to keep things interesting, and like new weapons, multiplayer modes. The way that they're rebalancing the way that power works, I think will be really good for folks who are like dipping their toe into more competitive play.
Yeah.
I think this is great, and I'm with you. I can't wait to see the next update that they do after this. I will say I am very, very eager for the rest of the expansion pass to drop, though, because I'm still really curious about the like story-based content that's coming down the pike. But no, this is great.
Yeah, when I was on the plane to Japan before I had Zelda, I finished the Splatoon 3 campaign. I played it for like almost the entire 10-hour flight, and I finished it. And wow, it's really, really good. Have you finished it? Have you played it much?
Negative.
Okay. Yeah, the final kind of section is really good. The final boss is crazy, and man, if you're missing Mario Galaxy, like these games are the current Mario Galaxies. They just are. Like, yeah, the way the levels are set up. I've thought that since Splatoon 1. Like the level design is just very Galaxy-like. Like you jump from kind of like sectioned off area to sectioned off area. You do their platforming and combat challenges. Really creative, very Mario boss fights.
Yeah.
And the third one I think is the best ever. So yeah, I'm super excited for it.
And if we haven't talked about it enough, can we talk about the fact that nobody makes movement feel as good as Nintendo does in any video game? Like moving in Splatoon feels amazing. Like switching between like squid mode and kid mode.
Yes, it does.
It's fun. Like literally, like the actual moving from point A to point B is fast and smooth, and it's so much fun. Way better than some other games I played recently.
Yeah. Like what? You want to call any out?
I don't.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, when we were off and our Toadstool Scramble episodes were airing, the new Nintendo sales numbers did drop for the quarter. We didn't talk about them. There was nothing like super spectacular or noteworthy, but Splatoon 3 did cross 10 million. It's across the 10 million threshold in 6 months. Like
that's huge. Yeah, this is officially a heavy hitter. That is a massive number. The number of games that like celebrate like 1 or 2 million units, even on something as ubiquitous as the Switch, is pretty significant. Crossing 10 million means that this is a tentpole franchise at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of my main point in bringing up those numbers is that, Justin, you said this is a perfectly executed live service game, and this shows if the content is there, if it's fun to play, and if you have a good rollout, you can charge $60 for an ongoing game. They don't all have to be free to play experiments that get sent out to die. Like, if you make a really good game, you can do this. And then your money, you get it up front, so you're not like having to push these microtransactions. And obviously, Nintendo's in a very, very high position to be able to do a game like that. Like, not every developer can, but certainly you see some of these games that go out and die that could probably get a pretty good audience and maybe survive.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like the what Nintendo managed to perfectly execute was making a game that is fun to play, making a game that resonates with an audience and develops a fan base, because like Splatoon fans, like if you spend some time on the internet, there are some Splatoon fans, like artwork and things like that, and then like keep delivering an incentive to come back and continue to play. Splatoon, I think, is a game that's in that perfect spot where there's incentive to play it, and there's reasons to come back, but it's also not one that requires it to be your full-time gaming job. It's such a perfect, like, I always play a night or two a week or a couple hours a week while I play through all these other things. And then I just want to do some like mindless like splatting with my dudes, or you have a night with your buddies, and then you go back to all your other things. And so it's such a great like yes and game, if that makes sense, right? Like I'm playing this and also this, and like that's just always going. Like that's honestly a lot of what's making Fortnite work as well as it does, is like a lot of people like play all sorts of different games, but they're also always playing Fortnite. And I think that like this occupies that space for Nintendo, and it's no accident. It has everything to do with how well they've executed on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It took them 3 games to get a lot of the little things right, like some of the lobby systems, stuff like that works a lot better in this game.
It has not historically been what they're best at, so it's not a big shocker that it's taken them a little bit, but they're humming.
Yes, and this is a game that before you joined the boardroom, I expressed a lot of doubt about like its existence, like because they're traditionally a one entry per platform company, like one Mario Kart, one Smash. It's like,
this is the Smash for this platform.
Yes, and I kind of thought Splatoon was in that same boat, but I mean, 10 million copies.
Honestly, if Splatoon 3 had been the start of a console generation, I think it would have been, because of like how consistent it's continued to sell and how consistent its support has been. Like it honestly could occupy that Mario Kart 8 slot of like, here's the base game that never needs to change, but just a couple times a year, like here's new stuff to keep you coming back.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what the strategy will be moving forward. Like if you do have a new console that is backwards compatible, do you keep updating Splatoon 3? Do you sell another version of it, like in next gen enhanced? We have no idea what next gen looks like at all. It's like really
no
hard to
idea
talk about. But I'm curious to see if they will just move on to 4, because Splatoon 3 is going to outsell 2, and they're absolutely like have justified if they choose to kind of shift to Splatoon 4 for whatever comes next. But yeah, awesome to see. I crossed the 100-hour mark in that game recently. Like that has been a lot of my time since it came out. Because before my trip, I was not getting into anything huge because I knew I would have Zelda coming soon. So I just got to S rank, and it was a great time. But now I'm going to be knocked back down to A. I think you get demoted at the start of a new season.
Oh, wait for me to bring you down, drag you down, kick and scream.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, let's get into this week's Tears of the Kingdom discussion. We don't really have a specific angle this week. Last week we talked about some of the dungeon stuff, some of the depths stuff, which I think is a fair word to say at this point in the game. So Justin, let's just hear it. How's your week been with Zelda?
It's been good. I finally have had some space, an opportunity to actually put some hours in, and so I'm humming along. I have a game plan now. I'm deviating from that game plan constantly and executing very little of it, but I have a game plan. So my whole idea has been I'm going to move east. I'm going to clear the east side of the map. I'm kind of circling Zora's Domain because I don't want to push too far ahead in the story. I just want to kind of enjoy the world. And so I made it to Hateno. I have done I think all the like side stories in there and all that. And there's some like really like again, so much deeper side quests than there were in Breath of the Wild, like multi-step things, and I don't know how deep we want to get into some of the specifics of it, but like, and even like little things that they do with like how they use wells and caverns and like integrate things like the new Ascend ability with quests and all of those things is great. So I'm having an awesome time.
Mm-hmm. I know when an NPC is like, oh, you can't get in there though, the door's locked. If only we could dig a hole. And you're like, I don't need to dig a hole.
Like, I know what you're telling me.
To do. Yeah. No, I really enjoyed that entire quest line in Hateno Village. I thought it was fantastic. And yeah, it's like reminiscent of when in Ocarina of Time you get to Kakariko Village and you return the cuckoos to their nest, and like you do all these things that are now just so much more expanded and blown up than they were back in the older games, and just something I felt Breath of the Wild did not do. That this game is really just nailing just how dense it is and rewarding it is to do all these things.
One of the things I mentioned on the last show is that I'm really curious to see places that I've seen before, right, and seeing how they changed over time. And Hateno Village has like time has passed and like it has changed, and there's been like like there's a story behind like why it had changed it the way it has. That's really interesting to dig into. And I've been extremely curious to see what's up with Link's house. Spent I cut down a lot of wood to build that house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, and it's totally worthwhile. There's you go in there and it looks like a house that has been lived in. Also, it looks like somebody made Link take all his weapons down off of the walls,
Come on.
which is fine. But it's great, and like you see little snippets about like what life has been like with Link and Zelda since the prior game. There's even a really really fun little secret lair, I guess, for Zelda to find, which by the way had multiple like frogs in it, which is a great throwback to one of the most memorable memories from Breath of the Wild. So it is a really fun place to explore and a really fun place to catch up.
And it sends you on a little bit of a quest. If you
and now you and I were having a conversation about another location, a very important location in the game that I said I hadn't stepped into, and you mentioned that. Oh yeah, you totally went in there because you got a quest that said it. That's the one, isn't it? I'm sure of it.
It sure is.
So yeah, that is also on my to-do list.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I think that kind of the little niche I wanted to talk about this week was just like the details, just incredible in the dialogue in this game. And Breath of the Wild had some of this. I'm just really appreciating it this time around. You walk around in your underwear and people say different things to you. It's raining and almost every conversation is different.
Has dialogue based on the weather. Yeah.
And it's not just a little bubble dialogue like above their head as you're approaching them. It's like, oh, like I did a quest where I needed to scale a mountain to get up there for something. And I'm in this dialogue conversation and she says to me, I'm sorry to make you go up there when it's pouring like this. And I'm like, I can't believe that's in there. And like every kind of regional phenomena has its own unique outfit, right? Like there's the heat outfit for Goron or the cold outfit for Rito. When you wear that and talk to the people affiliated with that quest, they're like, wow, you're rocking that outfit. And it's like, it's just there's so much. It's crazy. Like if things are at night, like if you're doing some of the side quests with with my favorite branch of side quests, they'll be like, wow, we're really keeping you up late, aren't we? And it's just like, wow, it's just awesome. It makes it feel so much more real.
When I was in Hateno, I got so many compliments about my spectacular hat, which if you have done this quest, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That makes it a lot of fun. Yeah, I do. That detail is fantastic. Something you and I chatted about before the show was there's a certain quest where you in Hateno where you follow somebody to a building that's normally locked. But I, in my exploring, had realized at one point I was standing directly underneath it, and I had used the ascend ability to go up into it, and I explored the room already before I started this quest, and then I just exited through the door. And so this time when I follow that person and they go in, like, they just say to themselves, oh, somebody unlocked the door. And so, like, it accounts for that stuff. And there's so many opportunities for these things. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, what did they say no to in this game? Because it seems like they said yes to everything they thought of.
Yeah.
And I think I'm also the caves are more and more cementing themselves as one of my favorite things
caves.
to do.
Oh man,
they're so much fun when you step into one.
Tunneling through a cave.
Yeah, you never know if it's going to be 10 minutes or an hour. You never know, and that's so cool. You never know if you're gonna fight a boss that just is in there, just waiting for you. Like
maybe there's a shrine in there.
Yeah, that happened to me last night. Maybe there's just
some gems, right? Or maybe you're just gonna get some fish in a bubble gem, and then you're gonna ascend and realize you're not anywhere near where you thought you were.
Yeah. There's been some funny moments with that where I'll ascend out of a cave and literally be like in an enemy camp with sleeping bokoblins, but they let you hit B to undo your ascent, so it's just like nope.
I am so glad you mentioned that because the latest in Justin's Kind of an Idiot is I was going around Hateno Village and I was trying to get into a couple different buildings that were locked from the outside because I wanted to explore, like the aforementioned one on that quest. And I kept like trying to make note of my grid location on the map, and then I would pop up. And then I'd be like, oh shoot, I'm just outside the building. So I'd jump out, run to the well, jump back in, come back, pop up. Oh, I missed it on the other side. Come out of the ground, jump in. And I did that 3 or 4 times when I was like, oh my God, I can just go back in the ground when I pop up. I don't need to do this 2-minute long walk every single time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just that. I had a moment. I'm trying to remember what it was now. Because last week or a couple weeks ago, you talked about forgetting that you could just climb. something that you're like, oh my gosh, I can just scale this wall. I had a moment where it's like,
oh man,
how did I just forget that I could do that? And oh, I forgot that I could throw things. Basically, there was something that really wanted me to throw something at it, and I was like trying to like shoot it with arrows like attached to it, or, like ultra hand it, or do all this stuff, and it's like, wait, you can just throw stuff. Because I will say, this is like the tiniest of nitpicks of what I think is a phenomenal game. There's so many mechanics stuffed in here. The controls and the menu navigation are not always ideal.
I wish you could remap the controls.
Yeah. I could see why I'm used to them. I've played it enough. I'm very used to how it all works. I could see how it could be a turnoff to somebody, especially if you didn't play Breath of the Wild and you have to learn like all the like holds
where the
right
jump
button to open the weapons and then scroll over with your right stick, and like it's kind of weird.
It is a high level maneuver just to shield surf.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And there's some example like to attach something, you have to like draw like or start to throw your weapon and then hold up and then scroll over. So you're like holding 3 things.
Yep.
It's a little finicky.
You're doing the claw.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's and then like the abilities you get after dungeons. I saw somebody tweeting about this today. Like, there's no good way to access them besides walking up to the spirit and just triggering it. And it's like, that can be annoying in key situations. But that's it. That's the only complaint I have 80 hours in, is that. So, still.
I do think there's like some UX work could have been done just to make it easier to do those things. Because I do the same thing where like, I'm like, or, I'll also frequently hit like the D-pad to try and like cycle through my abilities or things like that. When like they're mapped to a different button. So I'm going to continue to make those mistakes. I will say we talked a little before the show about the depths. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I've done very little down there, but go for it.
Well, you did come across one of the things that I think makes it really interesting. Okay, so let's preface this with slight spoilers if you have not been to the Great Plateau or not done like any of the depths yet. I think we're giving folks enough lead time. But this will pertain pretty specifically to that. So this is your warning. Ready, go.
And it's also something that's in Breath of the Wild already. They're just being used in a new way. So it's not that super big of a spoiler anyways. Yeah.
But how has your experience been with the Yiga clan in the depths?
Yeah. The Yiga clan has been, I think, one of my most improved areas from Breath of the Wild. I found it, and that's for a couple of reasons. I found it very annoying in Breath of the Wild that most NPCs you find on the road are just Yiga clan members, and that still happens to you, but there's a much higher probability of interacting with an NPC, and it's actually interesting and different in this game, so that's much fixed. And then the Yiga clan becoming these like little architects with the Zonai tech in the depths is just hilarious.
Yiga archaeologists down there like in the depths. Yeah, so I wondered if we were in what capacity we would see them again in Tears of the Kingdom, and they do occupy kind of a similar position as like the opposite of the Sheikah and as a foil coming after Link. But like when you drop down to the depths and you see that like they're researching it, like they're trying to figure out the Zonai tech too, I think it adds a lot more. I don't think realism is the right word, but there's a certain feeling of like, okay, it's not just a plaything for you, the player. Like it's a thing that exists in the world. Other people are interacting with it too. And it really dawned on me that was the case when one of them came at me with a giant bulldozer with spikes on the front of it.
They get pretty creative. Yeah, I really like that.
Oh my God, this is like, how much fun would it be to be developing this game? You're like, okay, your job is to make the vehicles that the Yiga drive. Okay, well, what cool things can I construct together? And so, there's like underground bases of Yiga. Again, had no idea about this a few weeks ago, and then I come across it, and all of a sudden they've got flying patrols and motorcycle cops, and I'm trying to sneak in and out, and and then like I'm trying to shoot arrows at and like hit a dude off of it like he's on a brute chopper in a Halo or something. Continues to astound me. Like what sort of surprises lurk around every corner. And so like there was one underneath the Great Plateau that I went to. It was like as a whole camp surrounded by spikes. And this is where the very first place that I unleashed the Logan Special, which is the spring attached to the shield.
Yes.
So that was exactly how I figured out how to get over their like battlements and like up to the top of this tower to climb it. There was a bunch of springs down there. I started hot glue gunning them onto my shields, and away I go. And it worked like gangbusters. And it was so much fun and so ridiculous. And then they're just circling me in their little like X-wings, and I'm trying to take them all out. It's fantastic.
It feels very like, I don't know, like GTA or Uncharted almost, like coming across these like constructs of like, because like you play Uncharted and there's guys like in Jeeps with big mounted guns on the back, and then there's snipers, and then there's just foot patrols, and it's like, and a lot of games have that, right? But Zelda had like the Bokoblin camps in like Breath of the Wild, but the Yiga like actually constructing things and then being like the most like humanoid like enemy in the game. It's like, it very much feels like some of those other like AAA action adventure games you play in a really fun and cool way. If you go to some of these Yiga bases on the surface, you know what I'm talking about? And you get something at these, right? You free somebody and you get something. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to say it. You get a costume where you can dress like a Yiga. And so I went
my best
down.
stealth suit, by the way.
Yeah, I went down into one of these bases, and I just like role played the life of a Yiga clan member for like 5 minutes.
As a Yiga?
I did. I was just walking around. I wanted to see if you were dressed as a Yiga, if you could talk to them. Was what I was hoping. I was hoping that like they had dialogue if you went down there. They didn't. You could still just like target them and like sneak strike them if you wanted to. But it was fun because it gave me, I think, a greater chance to like observe what was happening in this place. Like,
see their patrols, their paths,
see what they've like built and all this, and it's like, wow, they have like really intricate construction down here, and I really like that because it gives you ideas of what you want to build yourself too.
That's what I say. It's so well presented too, because they'll have like racks of equipment like somebody would have if they were collecting these things.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a perfect way to convey to players that the constructs can be more sophisticated and like multi-layered. Like, you know, when you've been rolling around on two wheels attached to a stick for 20 hours, and all of a sudden a dude comes by in like an excavator, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Apparently I am not a fraction as clever as I thought I was.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, it is. It's cool inspiration, and it's a cool way to like sort of see like how these things can fit together and how they can work. Like they're flying machines. Like you look at it and be like, oh, okay, that's how you make a flying machine that actually works, rather than mine that just dives into the ground and kills me instantly. Okay, cool. Yeah. I can take that away.
Yeah, absolutely. I in my own journey, I'm ready to finish it. I'm ready to see how this thing ends. I'm going to go back once I finish it and do more side adventures and explore the depths, which I have still severely neglected. But I'm ready to see the story.
There are horrors down there. Horrors.
But every day that passes, I'm getting more and more worried about someone else telling me how this game ends instead of seeing it for myself. So I think that I'm ready to go and wrap it up. I am in the 4th dungeon. I'm at the Gerudo dungeon. I think it's going to be my favorite one. It is very, very cool. And I really am loving the regional phenomena, I'll say, in the desert. It is awesome. And I think you'll be very happy with it, Justin. It's very cool. And the power that you get there is also probably the coolest of the 4. Like, it is just, it's an awesome finale. It's an awesome place to go last to kind of wrap up the main quest. I really like that. That's the last one that I'm heading to. It's super fun.
Yeah, that's going to be the last place I end up. I still have a number of zones I want to clear first. I mentioned I'm kind of circling around Zora's Domain, but that will be where I go next. And then I'm going to save the Gerudo for last as well.
We did them in the same order. We did the 4 in the same order.
Yeah. Again, that the unseen hand of Nintendo, like that's no accident. Like they do steer you in a certain order. Like they do say, hey, you know, if you want a place to go to this one, perhaps. And like that art of suggestion is really effective. I really liked that area in Breath of the Wild. I liked how spacious things were. I liked how just moving from like point to point required like planning for a while until you had all the right equipment. And like, frankly, I liked how much less climbing there was. I liked that the traversal was focused more on covering distance rather than just like going vertical and like Rivali's scaling yourself up and having everything ruined by like rain. So it's one I'm definitely looking forward to. Yeah,
the water one was a very, very fun segment as well. I really enjoyed all of that. I've liked all 4. I think I've liked them more as they've gone on. Like, I've really liked them more and more. as I've done that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I thought Eldon was just fine.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But
Yeah. I liked the temple there a lot. I like the dungeon.
Yeah, see, I don't love the dungeon. But I loved going through the Rito. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah. It's fun how different they all feel too. You do very different things.
So distinct. Yeah.
And 2 weeks ago, I hinted at this, and now that we've kind of like opened the door on dungeons and this main quest, I can finally share this main point fully, which is that this game is extremely like Majora's Mask in how its main story is set up. And Justin and I are self-admittedly not the biggest Majora's Mask fans around. But there's something that it does that this game also does, and that is you go to a place, the four corners, it's the same in Majora's Mask, right? Terminally, you go to the four areas, and something is affecting the ecosystem there. And then after you complete the dungeon, it fixes, and then a ton of new quests pop up because of the result of what you did. So as an example, the Rito one, that's the first one we did, right? It's a big snowstorm. It's cold. It's frozen. You solve it. It's melted. Everything changes. And so it's like there's this before all the quests you do, and then this after that make it worth like still hanging out for a bit after you finished everything there. And that's super cool. And I really like that. And yeah, like when you're walking through the Goron village and they're all chomping on that meat and like looking super like, you know, high, it's and totally out of it.
Yeah, nobody wants to talk to you. And,
it's like, yeah, that gives me really, really big Majora's Mask vibes of just like, wow, that something's not right here. And then you, of course, defeat the big thing that's causing it. And I think that's very cool. And I really like how they approached it this time.
Yeah, I agree. I did see a funny comic though that was detailing some of the differences, like with Breath of the Wild, where it's like you go to every region and it's like the divine beast is just going to kill everybody. Like that's the story of every region. You're always going to get killed by that. Whereas like Tears of the Kingdom, there's actually like things happening that you need to respond to. So I thought that was fun. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I think it also is another effective way to keep things feeling fresh. Like again, using the Rito as an example, like seeing everything covered in snow, like made it interesting and different from all the time we spent there in Breath of the Wild. But then fixing that, right, made it different from what we just spent a bunch of hours in. So it's a really good way to keep it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that those sorts of things are a big part of why replaying the same like world doesn't feel stale at all.
Yeah, it's super impressive. Just all the ways they've altered it between that and then the caves, the sky, the depths, the fleshed out quests, the ways you interact with the building. Like, yeah, it's a different game. Yeah. What was that? What'd you say?
I said the Eldritch horrors under the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's scary down there.
Yeah.
It's very scary down there.
And I've just been so impressed. This is my last note for this week. I've just been so impressed with the construction of the world and just how I think Nintendo thinks about, like you talked about with Splatoon, Nintendo thinks about the feel of things a lot. Like, how does Splatoon feel? They think about how it feels to explore this world more than I feel like most open world designers do. Like, can you even imagine? Like, they had to think about when you're in a cave, where do you pop up? They thought about that for sure, because you usually pop out after the bubble frog. So they thought about every single one. Where do you pop out? And what's around you? What
so I've
catches the eye?
specifically, and like it reinforces itself because now I've been trained that like they know that we're going to do that. So they put something interesting there. So I always pop out there because now I expect there's going to be something interesting when I pop out there. And it's this great like give and take between the player and the developer that that is really effective. As long as I, don't forget that I can not pop out of the ground.
Yeah. I also appreciate, kind of on the same note of just that thought of how the player views and interacts with the world. Everything is so much more visible in this game. The huge green swirls around the shrine, the spotlights on the towers before you've activated
you can see them forever away.
The geoglyphs, which tell you where the memories are.
I don't understand how the draw distance is so good.
I know. Yeah, it's a big difference from Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's it for me this week. If you have anything you want to add.
Only thing I'm going to add is stick springs on weapons. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yes, do it. Those are fun. Or I like fanning enemies off of ledges and
Yeah,
just
that's pretty good. I will say, like, if you want a really effective combination in combat, have something that freezes folks, and then a really, really big hammer that you can charge up and then smash them when they're frozen.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can one-shot a lot of dudes with that.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I did kill my first Goliath finally. It happened.
I still I have not run into one yet.
Yes, I ran
I'm looking
into
forward
one.
to it though. I like
Awesome.
challenging encounters, and like I like some folks that have been somewhat lukewarm on the combat. I love it. I really like the way combat feels, especially when you get a really good feel for the timing of things like flurry rushes and things like that. You look like John Wick with a sword. You know, go into a battle, you start hacking, you jump over somebody, you hit him with a bunch of flurry rushes. All of a sudden, something explodes, things are on fire. You glide up in the air, then you are just headshotting everything on your way down. Then you come down with a big smash. Yeah, it's so much fun to do, and that's before you add things like mushrooms that launch people off the ends of weapons and things like that.
I feel like people are getting used to like combat systems like super action heavy that have like a ton of different options for the character. Link can't do that much himself with sword and shield in hand. It's about using the environment and your inventory.
That's it.
To do it.
It fits philosophically in with the entire rest of the game, which is you're given tools and then go have it. Like, you don't have a button combination you press to execute this like 80% damage move. You swing whatever your weapon is, and he has like a little combo he does that you can interrupt at any point and block and dodge and parry, and then stick meat at the end of an arrow and shoot it at somebody and do all sorts of wild things and shoot. You know, I will say one of my favorite things to do is to have like a boss bokoblin hurl a rock at me and recall it back at him. It makes me laugh every single time.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, and just look around at your environment. Like, there's usually bombs or barrels or something for you to interact with, or something that can catch on fire, something for you to do. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I kind of feel like, I mean, we could talk about this game forever. I kind of feel like we're nearing,
as we demonstrated,
the point where we got to pause and then have a big spoiler cast when we're ready. I mean, we'll still talk about it, but
yeah, I'll need to hunker down a little bit and power through the story some more. But again, I'm as long as I don't get any other big assignments imminently, I should be able to make some good progress for a while.
Yeah, not anytime soon. I think that something that this is I mean, it's Nintendo related, but this is kind of with the industry at large that I've been feeling, I think a lot specifically with this game, is that I wish that the industry and fans collectively would just slow down and enjoy something a little bit more. I kind of already feel like people are starting to be like, well, what's next? We even talked about it on this show. Like, we going to get a direct this month? And it's like, yeah, it's interesting to talk about. But personally speaking, from a fan standpoint, like Chris said on the first week this game came out, like, can't we all just soak in this game for a while? Like, we get a new Zelda well, gosh, it might not be the rest of this decade that we see a new 3D mainline Zelda. And it's like, people are like, oh, we don't know what's coming next. And you go on the PlayStation stream, and yeah, that's a different fan base, but everyone's like, wow, there's nothing to play. And I'm like,
right, they announced 15 things, and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing." Yeah, and that's certainly informed a lot of how I've approached Tears of the Kingdom. Okay. Like, you know, I have intentionally not done any work on it as a writer. I haven't written guides for it or previews, or I didn't, you know, try and put in to do the review of it because I don't want to play it any way other than how I want to play it.
Yeah.
And like, you see that now. Like, I'm a ways behind folks. Some of that has to do with the fact that, like, you know, life is busy and things like that. A lot of it is
Lord of the Rings Gollum.
It kills us. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like, I want to just meander about, and I want to go hide in silos and unlock doors and get a fancy hat and have everybody tell me how cool I look, rather than like power through and clear every dungeon as quickly as possible. And like, I want to use dumb weapon combinations sometimes and not do things in the most efficient manner possible and get lost in the depths and get just terrified out of my gourd and then run away screaming. Like, that's how I want to experience Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that everybody should be able to experience it however they want. And there is a constant like push or that I feel to, like, no, you got to get caught up. You got to stay like with where the conversation is and like with the zeitgeist. It feels like everybody's starting to finish it right now. So it's like, oh no, you got to be right there with them. And I am like doing my best to resist that because the way that I want to experience this is I want to live in this world for a long time and flip over every rock and rotisserie every Korok.
Yeah, well, maybe not that, but yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm not going to rush you to finish it for like, when I'm talking spoiler cast, I'm talking like end of this month, maybe next month, like a while, like a ways.
Yeah, and like I do want to, because I am very invested in this story. Like it's a lot of folks don't get as invested in the Zelda story as I think you or I do. But I am very invested in it, and I certainly think that people who say that it doesn't actually have a story, like, are missing out, because there is a lot going on, and a lot isn't just told to you and shown to you. Like, you need to like see it and experience it and things like that to really get a feel for it. And like, yeah, you do need to engage in the series on the whole to appreciate a lot of what they do. But it's really rewarding if you do. And so like I do. I want to bask in all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I am on the path to finishing it now, but I'm by no means done with it. Like, also, I think another reason I want to finish it now is the encounters are starting to get pretty easy for me because of how many shrines I've done and how good my weapons are and how many fairies I've upgraded my armor with. And it's like, I don't want the final boss to just be like a poke it with a stick a few times and you win. Like, I want to go beat it when it's challenging.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. That was one of the slight bummers I had in Breath of the Wild, is that by the time I got to Calamity Ganon, he was no threat to me.
Yeah, that final encounter is just a disappointment, I think, in general. I don't think that's a very good ending to that game. I'm hoping that this is where this game steps it up a little bit, like it has in pretty much every other department.
Yeah, make it more like Twilight Princess.
Yes, it already is in a lot of ways. Yeah, just in that cinematic way. But yeah, so Toadstool Nation, if you're like, I just encourage you to just take it slow through this one, because it's not every year you get a new Zelda. It's not every 5 years you get a new Zelda. And so it's just been a little bit frustrating for me seeing people be like, yeah, like, what's next for Zelda? And
now
I think that's a really good conversation to have, like in a month or in 2 months. Like, I don't think it's time now to think about like the next open world Zelda. I think it's time to be like, wow, look at what we're playing right now. Like, it's on its path to not being my favorite game, but being like my favorite piece of entertainment ever in my life. And it's like, why would you just rush past that? It's just how I'm feeling. So yeah, I'm glad you're taking it slow. And I mean, I'm 80 hours in. And I have friends who beat it at like 50 or 60. Like, I'm taking it slow.
I'm probably like half that, and I'm still, I've hit maybe half the like towers to uncover half the map. I'm just little by little.
I'm excited for you to see all the memories too, because we got some stuff to talk about.
I haven't touched the memories yet.
You don't even have one?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, we got one question here to wrap up with. And yeah, please keep sending in your Tears of the Kingdom thoughts also, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. And this one comes from Chad. And Chad says, hi, Logan and Justin. At the end of Toadstool Boardroom 44, Logan said that he'd understandably love to talk to / interview Zelda developers. Just for fun, if you did all get an opportunity to interview developers on the Zelda team, what are 1 to 3 questions that you'd like to ask them? I enjoy listening to the Boardroom every week. Thanks so much for creating and sharing such a fun and energetic podcast for Nintendo fans around the world. Thanks so much, Chad. And this is a great question. This is like the exact type of question I like to see fans send in. So I really like this one. Justin, does anything spring to mind first for you?
Boy, that's a tough. I'm gonna have to think about that one for a second. That's a big ask. Like, if I could sit down with like Aonuma or Fujiwarashi, like what questions would I want to ask?
Like, where do you even start with something like this?
Yeah, it's tough too, because like there's a lot of topics I want to understand, like holistically, like on the whole, but you don't really get answers to that by asking really broad questions. Like you need to ask more pointed, specific things, I think, to uncover a lot of it. But I'm really curious about like at what point in development they really just decided, like, philosophically what this game was going to be. Like, like, did they know that they were going to like go all in on like fusion and customization and like player build, like, right from the get-go? Or is this something that came from like evolving powers at some point? And so like questions like around the formation of like how things like God Hand and Ascend, and like how they iterated on those and how those came to be, I'd be really curious about. I also do want to know, like, what is the like, and it's tough because like they don't prioritize the story necessarily. Like they've been very clear, like they want gameplay first, but and then the story has to fit that. But like, what in terms of like the broader narrative of Zelda, like what was the goal of this one? Like what did they want to do to the Zelda story overall with this? There was a lot of thought that Breath of the Wild was kind of meant to be like at near the end of it. Is that still something that they're looking at this as? Is this meant to be sort of a like, here is kind of where everything wraps up for now kind of story? Or are they trying to create new branching paths for everything to go? Like what's, where is, from a narrative standpoint, like where are they taking us with all this? Like, or what are they trying to take us to? And I think that would also be a really tough one to get a good answer on. But like, those are the sorts of questions I would really want to dive into.
Yeah, those are good ones. I've been wondering that myself about the narrative, because it definitely feels bigger than the ones we've seen before.
Like it is the first time where it really feels like a Zelda game is built intentionally connecting to the whole series. Maybe with the possible exception of Skyward Sword, as like this is meant to be like step one
setup.
And even that, it was like, well, everything has to respond to this, not the other way around. But like it feels like it has a really broad reach, and I'm curious about how intentional that is, and what the point of all that is.
I like those picks. I know you've been saying like totally kind of off the grid for this game. They did actually talk a little bit about where Ascend came from. They said it was like a dev hack they were using to make getting around easier when they were making this game, and then they said, let's just keep it in. But like the whole world is built around that. So how early did they have that thought?
You said let's keep that in. Like does like an environmental designer then like quit on the spot?
Exactly.
Like like was it something that you were intending to be like limited, like only applied to certain surfaces? Like has it always been through everything? When you said yes, did that mean that you were going to make it work and ship it with that no matter what? Or was there a certain point in development where it's like, we need to get it to work by this point, and if it doesn't, we have to axe it, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's incredible. I'll start. I have three, I think, in mind. The first one is, I mentioned it earlier on the show. What did you say no to in this game? What got cut?
What didn't make it?
I need to know that. Like, were there crazier powers that didn't make it? I am 80 hours in. I am still finding new Zonai devices. There are so many.
There's so many.
And they're like divided by region, which is really cool. Like you get ones kind of relevant to the region.
Tank creds?
Yeah. It's so how many did they cut? Like what ideas didn't make it into this game? I want to know that. Like that would just be fascinating. And who knows if they make like another making of book like they did with the Creating a Champion Breath of the Wild book, maybe we'll see some of that stuff that got cut. Some of that's in there.
And I'm like, like what kind of wild, silly things did they not put in? I'm like, like did you guys cut out a pogo stick? And then I immediately thought about, actually, you could make a pogo stick using a spring, one of those balancers and things like that. Like you could absolutely assemble one.
Yeah. And then this is kind of like an offbeat one, but I don't know. I think that like we tend to get so caught up as gamers who play a lot of games and write about games a lot and talk about games a lot. We tend to get a little bit entrenched sometimes. And I think something I've always heard about Nintendo is that a lot of their developers, they do game, but it's not their only hobby, and they have a lot of other primary hobbies. So if I got to sit down with like Aonuma and Fujibayashi, be like, what do you do that's not games? Like what inspires you creatively outside of games? Because that you get ideas like this and bring them into work. Because I talked about this a little bit about my trip to Japan, but when I'm over there, I see stuff they've pulled inspiration from everywhere. We know Miyamoto thought of Pikmin because of gardening. Like these little things, it's like, what in this is inspired by things you didn't see from other games? And just kind of what kind of real world stuff. Like Aonuma used to design like these puzzle box puppets that worked in really weird ways. And that's how he made like Temples and Ocarina of Time was with that. It's like, I want to know stuff like that. That to me is super fascinating. What real world experiences inform it.
There was a great story from Aonuma recently talking about how he used to be a woodworker and how much he hated like seeing the glue between joints for a while and how difficult it was for him to like be okay, like come to grips with that. So there's so much influence between like your life that they put into these. That's fantastic.
So yeah, that would be probably like the main thing I'd want to talk about. And then I guess there's that quote. I've mentioned it on this show before, but Aonuma after Skyward Sword said, like, it's my turn to make my mark on Zelda. I kind of want to circle back to that and be like, so look at these two games that you just produced that Fujibayashi directed. Like, are you satisfied? I guess. Like, do you still have unfinished business in this series, or do you feel like you accomplished what you wanted to when you said that 11 years ago? Like, I think that would be a really interesting thing to talk. He's 60 years old. Miyamoto's still there at 70. He's not making games anymore, though.
Yeah.
This could be the last Zelda with him in this super hands-on role. Like, I don't know, to be able to talk about like the legacy in that series, that would just be like, that'd be a bucket list career item.
I think at some point there's a book to be written about the succession of the Zelda franchise and its move from Miyamoto to Aonuma to what's clearly going to be Fujibayashi and like their histories with it, and like, you know, they're like, you know, trying to like identify like their fingerprints on different aspects as they became part of the development and that had influence over development and then took control of development. There's a really interesting history there. And like, yeah, like what is your legacy? Yeah. Like when you look back on it, like what do you want people to see or take away from what you did with the franchise?
And then maybe ask like, Fujibayashi, well, what do you want to do with it? Like, what's next? Because Zelda, like, I think it's so special because it is always usually innovating. I think when people felt like it was bottoming out a little bit, that was when it wasn't innovating as much with like Skyward Sword. But I mean, you look at the original Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, like they all have their place in like gaming's pantheon of some of the ones that push the medium forward. And there's been a handful of people that have driven that, and it's like, yeah, just to talk about that would be incredible. And then there's some things we'll never get the answers to. Like Twilight Princess apparently was once a very different game than it turned out to be. Apparently Miyamoto got in there and was like, no, you got to make it like more like the other ones. And it changed a lot about
what was it going to be?
Ideas.
Yeah.
That's like some like urban legend being passed around the games industry. It's like, I want to talk, like, what did Twilight Princess look like? Before,
you know, I would love would be a costume of Rock and Roll Link in Tears of the Kingdom. You know that concept art that they had.
Yeah. But yeah, to get an opportunity, and then like an opportunity like this will never happen for us, likely, and probably not for anyone. To get a Japanese, like, there's already a huge gap there in communication and distance, and then I mean, Nintendo's so tight-lipped. Like, to get them to answer these questions
with a truth serum.
Yeah, exactly. It just wouldn't happen. And but yeah, it would be incredible if it did. Great question though. Yeah, keep sending them in like that. Yeah, thanks for that, Chad. But I think that's it. I think that's our show. We've been going long since Zelda came out. It's understandable.
It's easy to do.
Going a little long. But that's another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom in the Books weekly Nintendo show here on Fridays. Now we're recording on Thursdays for the time being, around noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on YouTube video version, and then podcast services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen to the show. You can follow us on Twitter at ToadstoolBR, or you can send us an email, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. This show, I forgot to say it, it's our 1-year anniversary. We've been doing this for a year. Woo! So that's very exciting, and yeah, we got at least another one in us. But for now, you can find Justin online at...
You can find me on Twitter at KOREIS.
And you can find myself at Logan J. Plant. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.